Hi guys, so this video tutorial is going to teach you the basics of a technique called oblique drawing. This is really similar to isometric, so you've had a little bit of a head start with this task, but with oblique all angles are done at a 45 degree. So you will need a 45 degree set square. This one, unfortunately, I did not have one at home, so I've needed to borrow a huge one from school. But hopefully you've got access to a set square at home, and please make sure that it is a 45 degree angle, not a 30 degree angle, because the 30 degree ones you would use for the isometric technique. So on the PowerPoint, if you've got the slide up that kind of introduces you to oblique technique, it says on there that there are three sides of the sort of shape on view. So you'll have the front. I'm going to just literally start with a cube today. So you'll see the front of the cube, and then as I start to draw, you'll see a side of the cube, and then you will also see the top of the cube. So there will always be three sides on view. You will only have one front to it as well, so you'll only see the whole square from this angle. And then when you produce these techniques, you will have all of your lines at a 45 degree angle, and the depth of the shape is always halved. So as we go through this technique, hopefully you'll see what I mean when I say halving the depth. So to start off with, I would really encourage you to literally copy exactly what I am doing here, just so that you get the fundamentals and the basics. So to start off with, I've bordered my page just with a centimetre for presentation. I've put a title at the top that says oblique, and in brackets I've left 45 degree angle there, just so that you will remember. And then to start off with, I've started really basic, just by drawing a square that is 6 centimetres by 6 or 60 millimetres by 60 millimetres. And then in order to get the angles, you are going to need to use your set square. And then working from a 45 degree angle, I'm just going to shift that around so you can see it. Working from a 45 degree angle, in order to do this, you need to make sure that the bottom of your square lines up to the bottom of the set square. So for accuracy, you can then line it up. So 45 degree. Now I'm going to really lightly draw in pencil to start off with, and you will draw 3 lines, again making sure that they line up. Do this really lightly, and then the final one that I need to draw is just here from the top. And the reason that I'm doing this really lightly is because when I said earlier about all of the side measurements being halved, that means that you take the original square and then you halve the dimensions here. So where I've got 60 millimeters, I will then need to use my ruler. Obviously half of 60 is 30, so I will then need to use my ruler to mark where 30 millimeters is. I'm going to mark here, and you'll see why I did this so lightly in pencil just a second ago. Okay, so all of these sides here, you can then, where you've marked off your 30, you can then press harder with your pencil just to the 30. So you can see where my light lines are. I don't actually need them, they're not part of the shape at all, but I tend to draw things lightly so that I know visually where I'm going with this. And then, really important, when you're then joining up the cube, take your lines that are there from the existing square and then make sure that you move your ruler so that they are parallel. So it should be a case of literally drawing from the 30 millimeter line here down, and it should hit the 30 millimeter line that you've drawn there. And then again from the top, you've already marked 30 mil here and 30 mil from this corner. But again, just for accuracy, just double check. So if I put my ruler against the top of the square, the original square, move your ruler up, just checking that they are parallel. And there you have your cube. What I would obviously advise is that if you've got access to a rubber, which you all should have, is that you then just rub out those lines there that weren't needed. Some of you will do this without actually extending the lines off, and that's absolutely fine. That's just the technique that I prefer to use. And then just for accuracy, it would be worthwhile here just writing that the depth is 30. So you always halve the depth when you're doing oblique, and all of your angles are always 45 degree. Okay, so the next slide on the PowerPoint then introduces you to the next task. It says to complete the following 4 shapes in using oblique technique. And on the PowerPoint slide, you will see that you have 4 different shapes that are given to you from the front view. So just to start off with your first shape, I've just called it shape 1 on here, is exactly the same as the one on the PowerPoint. You will draw this out to a size that is most appropriate. So again, I'm sticking with 60mm here. And then what you're going to need to do is then use your set square in order to complete the 45-degree angles up, and then make sure that you are then measuring half so that you know how far back the depth is going to be. So I will quickly just show you the first one. Again, using your 45-degree set square, make sure you line up. I would always do this again like I did previously. Always do this really lightly with your pencil. It just means that this is a slightly trickier shape this time because there are more points. It's not just as easy as completing a square. And remember that if you do this lightly, it's much easier to then correct any mistakes afterwards or rub out any lines. So that is just the initial shape with the lines drawn. And then what you will then need to work out is how far to go back. So the depth we always halve the depth. So 60 here means you're going to go back 30. So using your ruler, exactly as you did before, it's just a more complicated shape. You will then start to mark where your 30mm points are. And you'll need to try to keep your ruler parallel. So it might be easier for you to actually start to connect. So that line is parallel to this line. This one gets a little bit trickier. You need to go horizontally there. What you can then start to do is maybe mark out the shape as you go with this one. Might be easier to do that perhaps. This bit is slightly trickier because the shape actually goes down. So this line will continue to hit that corner there. And then again, you'll need to measure 30mm. Mark your lines. Hopefully this is coming out okay on the video so you can see. Again, just take note of where the shapes are. So you will not need to draw a line across here. Instead, you need to make sure that this line actually goes downwards. And then again, finally in the far corner, you can measure 30. And in this case, my line will then go across. And then again, just to finish, rub out any guidelines that you did. And then feel free to also just add on any dimensions. So we know that the width here is 30mm again. If it helps you to draw little arrows on here just to quickly demonstrate that that is a depth measurement and that this one is the width of the shape, feel free to add that on there as well. Okay, so that's shape 1 done. The answers then do get a little bit trickier. So you need to imagine that this shape is 4 different versions of the shape. They do get a little bit more complicated on the PowerPoint, so please have a go, challenge yourself, and hopefully this technique is something that you can pick up relatively easily just from looking at this tutorial alone.